Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing some reloading and I'm starting a new load book. And it is blank so far. That's because I haven't figured out what load I'm going to use yet. We are loading for 300 Blackout. As you saw in the last video, we formed this 300 Blackout brass really easily out of some Fiocchi 556. Really simple process, and it worked out pretty well. Not too long after I made that video, I came across 500 pieces of Starline brass. Yeah, that whole bag of it there. 500 pieces of Starline 300 Blackout brass for like 130 bucks, which is a pretty good deal, and I've had really good luck with Starline brass so far. So we'll be using that in the future, and I'll probably do a lot of my bulk loading with that Starline brass. But for now, since we've got this brass that we made up, we're going to go ahead and use it. I've got a couple of different bullets, two that I just ordered and one that I've had around for a while that we're going to test out in 300 Blackout to begin with, because these are the bullets that I could find. I've got the Spear 125 grain TNT varmint bullets, and these are hollow point flat base bullets. I'm not sure how well these are going to work for deer. I'll probably do a little more research and see if they're suitable for that. I may have to find a different bullet altogether for deer hunting, but anyway, that's that bullet, and probably the one we're going to work with today. And then there was also the 125 grain Hornady hollow point match type bullets, and those were kind of cheap. I don't remember how much these were. The Spear bullets were actually on sale for 19 bucks for this box, and I think they still are at Midway. The reason I'm going to start with these bullets is because they're still on sale right now, and if I get some decent results from this first test, I'm going to go buy up some more of these, because I only have 200 of them right now. When I was doing my research, starting out with 300 Blackout, I didn't have any powders that really worked for it. So I picked up two different powders and we'll try them out. I've got H110 and CFE Black, which should work. Well, I don't think I have any other calibers that this will really work in. But anyway, we've got those two. And I do plan to load 44 Magnum in the future, so H110 will be a good powder to have on hand for that. Today, I think I already said we're going to do the Spear TNT 125 grain and the H110. So let me get everything else out of the way here. Let's see, we got powder, bullets, brass, primers. I've got several options I can use for small rifle primers. Today, I think we'll do the CCI 400s. I've heard people say not to use these in an AR platform because they're not quite as strong a cup as, say, the CCI 450s or the Remington 7.5s. But I've always, in fact, I don't think I've ever loaded 223 with anything but CCI 400s, and I've never had a problem. So we'll just keep using these. So we've got all our components picked out. I suppose I should show you the gun we're going to be shooting these out of, because that's not something we've talked about yet. I considered doing a full video on the build of this gun, but I decided not to because YouTube won't let us show the build process anyway. So I'm just going to talk to you guys about what we've got going on here. I went with maybe just a little bit more expensive components than I normally do, and then I have on my last couple of builds. Some of these may end up getting switched out. I may end up putting this lower on my 6.5 Grendel, but we'll see. I don't think it really matters. So anyway, I mentioned the lower. We'll start with that. This is a New Frontier Armory billet lower. I was going into my local gun shop just looking for a lower to start this project, and they had this one and an Anderson lower. this one was about twice the price. I think this cost me 160 bucks, but it was Cerakoted. It had some kind of cool features. It is cut for, let's see, this cut right here maybe. It's cut for an ambidextrous bolt release thing, which I may put in there eventually. But overall, it just seems like a really nice lower. So I went ahead and ponied up the money for it. On the back, you can see it's got an SP Tactical SBA 3 brace, I believe is the number on this. I'm not really up to speed on all the different pistol braces. But this one, I kind of liked it better than a lot of the others that were available. The grip is a BCM Mod 0 gunfighter grip. I really liked the straight angle of this, especially for the pistol type. I really like that grip angle on here, and I could even go a little more vertical with it and it would be fine. But I really do like this grip. It's got good texture, and it's got a few different options for adapting to whatever trigger guard you have, and this one ended up working out good. Once I start shooting this, if I like it a lot, I'll probably get another one of these to put on other ARs, because it feels really good so far. Other components. The upper is mostly made from Aero Precision parts. The barrel is an Aero Precision. It is a 10.5 inch Aero 300 Blackout barrel. The upper is Aero. The handguard, I actually don't know who makes this handguard. I don't really care. It's nice. I think it's Aero, but I don't know that for sure. And then the muzzle brake on the end is a Gamma 300 Blackout VG6, which is also an Aero Precision company, I believe. I may not have put the muzzle brake on there, but I actually bought this whole upper as one unit. I was looking at prices online for individual components, and I was actually about to make an order for a very similar setup to this. But when I went into my local gun shop to get the lower, they had this upper that they had built for a customer who ended up not wanting it. So they marked down the price and sold it to me. 430 bucks is what I paid for the upper, which doesn't seem too bad. That didn't come with a bolt carrier group or charging handle, but I've added those in. Well, I actually haven't added the bolt carrier group yet in because it hasn't come. That is a little bit of a story. The charging handle is a Strike Industries charging handle with an extended latch. I really do like the extended latch, and if this handle seems to be good and doesn't bend out of shape, I'll probably end up getting one like this for the Grendel too. But it's probably the only budget part, I guess, on this gun, and it's I think this was about 30 bucks. The only other thing on here so far is the Strike Industries bolt catch, bolt release thing. I don't know if this makes a difference. I'm just trying this part out. I may end up swapping this back out for the CMC one that I have laying around because it matches the Cerakote a little better. This is more of like a phosphate finish on here, and the CMC parts kit that I ended up putting in this because I had it laying around just matches the color a lot better. You can see that it's got kind of a darker black on that mag release. The sights I've got on here right now are just my backup sights that I've got on my 223 AR most of the time. These are UTG, I believe. I just threw these on so that I could take a couple test shots with the gun. Before we head out to the range with the loads I've got today, I'm going to throw on a scope on top of here. That's going to look absolutely ridiculous on this little short AR build. But it will help us do some load testing. If you notice a little shaking in my hands today, or maybe a little warble in my voice, the 2 cups of coffee that I had this morning kicked in way more than they normally do, and I'm just a little bit shaky. But we're going to get through this. As I'd said when I started, I haven't quite picked out the loads, so I'm going to take a second to do that, and we'll come back. All right, and we've got data. So I decided to take a little bit of a different jump than I do on cartridges of this level. Hornady listed a max of 18.8 grains for bullets up to 130 grains. So I'm using that as the max. I could not find any data on the Speer website for 125 grain bullets. They had an option for 130 grain bullet, but that did not include H110 at all. They had H110 listed for 150 grain bullet, however. So anyway, I used kind of a hodgepodge of data here. I also did a little looking on forums, and this seems like it's going to be safe. I do want to start down a little bit lower than I normally would in my 0.3 of a grain increments. So I'm going to start clear down at 17, go to 17.5, then 18, then 18.5, and then we'll make one 0.3 of a grain jump up to Hornady's listed max of 18.8. I had thought about doing fewer than 25 shots for this test, but we are going to kind of break in the barrel at the same time. I have shot 10 shots through this gun so far with just a random load of the 150 grain, and they functioned fine. No pressure signs whatsoever. I think I used something like 14 grains or something of H110. But anyway, I'm going to clean the barrel out really well, using copper solvent and everything, and then I'm just not going to worry about the rest of the break-in. This is not a precision gun whatsoever. If I can get something that's like 1.2 to 1.5 MOA, I'm going to be really happy with it. That's about all I need with this gun. I won't be even too upset if all it'll do is 2 inches at 100 yards. So anyway, that's where we're at. Let's get to priming up this brass. I'm going to use the Lee hand priming tool. I do like this a lot better than the Hornady one in a couple of ways. It seems to seat primers a lot better and doesn't flip them over. It's got this elevator system that brings one primer up at a time and drops it down in so you don't get things jammed up or bound up. Seems to work a whole lot better for the small primers that I had trouble with the Hornady hand priming tool. I don't particularly care for the action of it. The Hornady hand priming tool, you squeeze this way, which I like a little bit better. This one, you kind of got to get both thumbs on there. But let's see how this works. We'll throw 25 primers in the tray. Yeah, heck, we'll throw 30 in. I can always dump them out, and 30 is a whole lot easier. All right, one actuation to get a primer up in there. Oh yeah, that's seated really nicely. Perfect. Yep, that's just what I want. All right, so I'm going to go through and prime up these 25, and I'll come back to you at powder. One quick thing about this priming system that I have found is that sometimes the primer doesn't seat quite enough to get the next primer to drop in. Let me see if it does it this time. No, there it went in. You can kind of hear it drop in. But it was right on the edge of not going. Let me try to hold it steady this time, and it probably won't. So there it didn't, and I don't have a primer, so I'm gonna have to lift it up again for that one to drop in, and then it's ready. I maybe could add a little shim inside there, like a paper shim in that elevator to fix that problem, but it's not that big of a deal. I can clearly see down into that window and see if the primer has dropped or not. And if I give it a little shake, it goes. All right, and there's 25. Set the priming stuff aside and get out a loading block. Get some powder in our bowl, and some powder in the trickler. Have I talked about this Frankfurt Arsenal trickler yet? I don't know if I have. I'll maybe mention it here in a second. All right, our first charge is 17 grains even. This is the 1cc scoop that came with the Lee die set. Let's see what a full scoop gives us. Oh, we're on grams. That's not going to do us any good. There, we got grains. 15.6. All right, we can trickle up from there. I do like this Frankfurt Arsenal trickler because it's hard to knock over. It's a good hefty thing. I bet this thing weighs a pound or more. But it's really, really slow. It doesn't seem to have much of an angle to the trickler, and it's threaded. Let me see if I can get it to prime up and trickle out here. Nothing coming out yet. I'll keep going. There, we're finally to the end and popping some powder out. But it's like 1 or 2 little flakes at a time. It is definitely slow. There, we're at 15.8. 9. 16. So I guess it's going to be pretty precise. But I'm certainly not going to want to be trickling whole grains every time. 16.4. I'm just sitting here spinning away. 16.8. 9. Okay, now I'll trickle slow to get to 17. There's 17. Definitely not going to overshoot it with this thing. Alright, once again, I'm not going to make you guys watch the whole powder charging process because it's going to take just a little bit. We'll do one more here. I did a heaping scoop on that one and it hit me right at 16. We're at 16, 8, 9. There's 17. So I'll charge the rest of these cases and we'll come back at bullet seating. Couple of things here before we seat bullets. So I was loading powder in the cases and I got just a little bit nervous about the top powder charges and jumping so quickly. Because after all, the point of a load workup, besides to find your accuracy nodes, are to build up pressure slowly and don't do it too quickly. So I'm still jumping a half a grain at a time down when we're in a very known safe range. We're going 17, 17.5, 18, but then after 18, I'm going to 18.3 and 18.5. I had it going from 18 to 18.5 and then 18.8. I didn't want to make a half grain jump right there when I don't have a whole lot of experience with full rifle cases of pistol powder. That just seems, well, to my untrained on 300 Blackout anyway, knowledge base, it just seemed a little iffy to make that jump. So we're going to go a little slower on the jump. Overall length, I had to do a little research on because Spear doesn't have 300 Blackout data for this bullet. So I think what I settled on from reading in the forums is 2.060. I'm going to seat one to that and see what it looks like. There is not a ton of bearing surface on this bullet. So we're wanting to get it down into the case, but not get it past the bearing surface. And we don't really want to compress this load, which we actually could if we seated the bullet too far. So let's not do that, and let's see what we get over on the press. So we'll just seat the first one here on our 17 grain charge. And I've got the seating stem backed way out. We're not even making contact yet. Alrighty. Well, let me stick it up in there. screw it down until it touches, and then I'll go a couple turns more. And I think we're still going to be quite a bit long, but that's okay. So let's see. Oh yeah, we're barely sitting in the case there. I'll just try to get an idea of the adjustments on this bullet. So we're at 2.205. So I'm going to go a half turn and see what kind of length difference that gives me. 2.175. So let's go to... Okay, I'm screwed all the way in. I don't think I'm going to be able to get short enough with this setting. No, I'm at 2.122. And that primer might not be all the way seated. But we're still just a little bit long, and my seating die, my depth on here is all the way screwed in. So I'm going to have to try to get that lock ring in a different position. So we're going to back out the die altogether, and we'll kind of start over here. Oh, I got to get my lock and load bushing locked in, which is a pain in the butt to do without locking the lock ring, because as I've said 1,000 times, there's no way to lock this in the press so that you can adjust this without having to fool around with it. Oh, let me back the seating stem out so we know that's not in the way. Okay, well, I guess we got plenty of room to go here on the die. Oh, a lot more than I thought. Okay, there we're contacting the case, so I'm going to come out a full turn. Screw the lock ring down. Okay, that's not contacting at all. And I'll screw the seater down until it touches. Then I'll go a little bit more and see where that puts us. 2.08. 2.08. So let's go quarter turn. That's actually seating the bullet down in there pretty well. And I can feel the powder move just the slightest bit. 2.067. I'm going to try to hit that 2.060. 2.062. All right, let's see the next one. .065. Okay, we can come down just a little bit more. There's a 2.060. Now we're probably going to end up like 0.02 short on this first one, but that's okay. 2.0595. Close enough. Let me seat this third bullet here. Half thousandth short. Not bad at all. Okay, let me check to make sure that these work in the upper. I pulled, since I don't have the bolt that I'm going to use for the 300 Blackout yet, I've pulled the one out of my 223 because of course they use the same bolt. And let's see. If it'll chamber. Yeah, that chambered. Okay. Chambered, no problem. Make sure we didn't get any shortening here. No, we're right where we were. There's a little scuff on this bullet, but that's because of how I was adjusting the die. Let's get one. Oh, you know what? They all kind of have it. I bet that seating stem doesn't fit it very well. I'm not having any trouble seating bullets, and I don't expect to have any along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and seat up the rest of these. Yeah, we're still at our good length. And then we will get out on the range and actually use some shooting with this thing. All right, we are out on the range, and I've been here for about an hour getting things set up, getting the gun sighted in. The barrel is cooled all the way down now. It's had 6 or 8 shots through it with this Sig Sauer 125 grain full metal jacket stuff. It seems to be shooting okay so far. We are going to group this stuff in just a second here to get kind of a velocity baseline since we're shooting bullets right in that same weight class. I do have the target set up at 100 yards today, and I may regret that. I may have to go down and mark groups in between each one because our target is kind of a bench rest setup, and that is certainly not the accuracy we're going to be expecting out of this gun. I have mounted, since we talked last, I've mounted my Vortex Viper scope on here, and with that 10.5-inch barrel and the pistol setup, it really looks rather ridiculous on there, which is just fine. I did have to mount it a little further back than I wanted to, and that's because there's a muzzle brake here, and I didn't want stuff flying right on the front lens of my expensive scope. You guys are probably thinking, geez, doesn't he have any other scopes besides just that one? And yes, I do, but this one was already in the cantilever mount, and this is the only cantilever mount that I have right now. So that's the scope that I put on here, got it sighted in, and we are ready to go, I believe. So let me grab out a few more rounds of this because I'm almost through this first box. I did, after the first 10 rounds of this ammo, I did run some Sweet 762 down the bore and get all the copper out. There really wasn't much at all, just maybe the slightest blue tinge on one of the patches. So I think we are good to go. I'm not going to worry about any further break-in on this barrel. It's not really a precision setup. This is going to be kind of a close range thing. This gun will eventually be wearing a red dot instead of a magnified scope. Yeah, I think that's all we have to talk about. So let's get shooting. Let me get 3 more rounds of this ammo. Just to keep things consistent, we'll run a 5-shot group with this ammo first. The short barrel has got me worried about shooting my chronograph. That's probably a little bit illogical, but I'm hoping we don't anyway. Sighting in this gun, there was one thing I noticed right off the bat, and I kind of figured it. This trigger in here. It is, I believe, the Midway USA, or the AR Stoner Enhanced Polish Trigger Group, or whatever they call it. It is a lot smoother than a mil-spec trigger, but it's heavy, so. With that said, get all my excuses out of the way to begin here. We're going to shoot down there at 100 yards, the target on the lower right-hand side. Hey, we're in the circle. That is a good start. It's going to be concentrating on a slow, easy trigger press. All right. Well, 4 of those shots went into about 1 MOA, which is way more than I expected out of this gun. Way more. I expected about a 3-inch group. So that is excellent. That one shot there went an inch wide of the group. Could have been me, could have been the gun, whatever. I'm happy with that. We're all on the target. That is about all I can ask for. Moving on to the Spear TNT and our hand-formed brass. 2,130 feet per second was our average for that group with the SIG ammo. So that kind of gives us an idea where to expect to end up. First group, we'll go with that, we'll start top to bottom, left to right, as we normally do. Normally, I would throw a new upper onto my target lower that's on the 6.5 Grendel right now. But because this is a pistol, I can't do that. I've got to stick with the upper that's got the pistol brace on it. So we're going to have to live with that for now. That was noticeably softer recoiling. And we hit about 2 MOA lower than that last group. I'm debating whether or not to go ahead and bring the adjustment up. And it looks like our velocity was in the 19s. No, I'll keep shooting, see what happens. We can always post a new target if we have to. And I kind of thought we were going to have a click there, but yeah, so it didn't lock the bolt back. It does have the H2 buffer in there, remember? So, all right, well, aside from that last shot I pulled, and I knew that I did, we've got a 2 MOA group there. A little less than 2 MOA, 1 3/4 by the scope measurement. So, not terribly disappointed with that. I'm going to go mark that target so I don't get confused. And let's go ahead and come up. Let's go ahead and come up to MOA on our scope before we shoot that next group. We may have to adjust down as we go as our velocities get higher. So I have marked the target to avoid confusion later, and I know in the past when I have skipped doing that, thinking that I'll remember what it looked like before, I've regretted it. So, on to our next group. I'm going to be shooting at that same top left-hand target. I have moved up the scope to MOA. I have a feeling as we get higher in our charge weights, I'm going to be chasing it back down, but we'll see. Didn't lock the bolt back again. That's all right. Okay, I'm gonna go check out the target down there and see if I can suss out exactly what happened. So the answer to what happened to those shots is a mystery. And it's gonna remain a mystery because I checked my target camera down there and evidently it cut out right before I started shooting that last group. Unless it did one of its weird things where it's missing footage and then weirdly it'll appear again later. Our brass looks perfect. Nothing at all to see on it. Other than the fact that it's still smashing into that shell deflector. But that's okay. We'll move on, and I think my prophecy of wishing that I'd set the target at 50 yards is coming true. Tell you what, I'm using, this is a magazine I picked up at Academy. It was on sale for 10 bucks. It's a Pro Mag, roller mag. I don't like it for a couple of reasons. When it's empty, it's nearly impossible to push the bolt release because it binds up when you push it down, even though it's supposedly on rollers, which there is a big old roller in the front. I don't know what it does because it's very hard to push that down, and I'm afraid I'm going to bend my bolt catch. The other thing about it is it doesn't click up into place positively. Like there, I just slid it in. No, it's not locked. And it's hard to tell if it locked into place. I saw my mag catch go in on this side. That's the only way I know, but you can't feel it. With the P mags, it just clicks in. You know it. There's an audible click when it snaps in. Well, let's try for the next group. Okay, now we're empty. And it looks like we broke 2,100 feet per second with 2 groups to go. So that was when that last group was 18 grains. We're going to go to 18.3 and then 18.5 next. So our velocity is not going to jump quite as much on these next 2 groups as it has in the ones before, unless we run into major problems. All right, we've got space on that target for one more crap show, and then I'll switch it out. There's 2 shots that landed on that target. 2 went high by, looks like about 6 inches. It's crazy wide. Crazy wide. I just torqued my rings and my mount before I came to the range, so I know that's not the problem. Everything's solid, nothing's twisting. Gun is fairly cool. I mean, warm, but not as warm as it would be if it were sitting out in the sun. So, all right, let's try to get one more group on that target, see if it'll actually group once we start getting a little bit more full of a case. We had over 100 feet per second of extreme spread on that last group, and it certainly showed on the target. I'm hoping we tighten up quite a bit, like a whole lot. Okay, I see where that one landed, way up into the right of my aim point. We've got our other groups marked, so we'll just shoot it. All right, and didn't lock the bolt back again. And our velocity is up about the same as the Sig. So, I at least saw where all those bullets landed. I'm gonna go mark them, switch out the target, and we'll shoot our last group. One group left to shoot in our load work up here, and I'm beginning to suspect that this gun does not like the bullet. It's kind of short and fat. We may have to go for something longer and maybe more designed for 300 Blackout. So I'm kind of glad that I'm finishing up this video because the clouds are moving in and it's starting to look like it's gonna rain. So we're gonna shoot this group, our last group with the hand loads, then we're going to take another group with the Sig Sauer factory ammo and just compare and see if at the end of the day we're still shooting as good as we were at the beginning of the day with that ammo. It has been about 30 minutes since I last shot this gun, 30 to 40 minutes. I filmed a 6.5 Creedmoor video in the middle while we were waiting for the gun to cool down and shot some amazing results, kind of predictably, with the 6.5 Creedmoor. So I know that this is not my shooting, guys. All right, let's take a quick look here at the targets and see what we've got. Oh, I suppose I should throw a caliper on this first group here. First 4 shots was about 0.8 of an inch, or I guess the best 4. That other shot opened it up to about 1.6, which is just fine. The rest that we shot with our hand loads, they're not even worth measuring. This group here, I don't know if you can even see in this rubble. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots over 3.5 inches there. That's not acceptable at all. It's just not. Let's go over to the last target here. Again, this is our last group at 3.5 inches, and there's the one that I shot with the Sig Sauer factory loads, 1.250 inches in that group here, which is about what we're targeting. This is, remember, our first shot, and then I moved down 3 MOA, and I did plot that point there, which is that little dot, and that's where it puts us. So that group was our best one of the day, and it was with the factory ammo, which is not what we want to see. So let's take a look at our bullets and see if we can get maybe a little better idea of what's going on here. All right, let's take a look at these projectiles a little closer. So here is the Sig round. And you can see that it has got a very long profile taper to it. And here is our Spear TNT. Remember, these are all 125 grain bullets. And you can see if we tried to seat it as long as the Sig round, we would just barely be in the mouth of the case there. Don't think we could do that very well. Here is the Hornady 125 grain full metal jacket. And this is looking closer. So there are the bullets lined up. And you can see where the cantilever hits. And that's starting to be an acceptable amount of bullet down in the case. Still not quite as much as I would like. I'd like to put it, of course, right there in the cantilever. So, what we got to try next is loading up this Hornady bullet and seeing if it shoots any better than the Spear. My suspicion is that we're not going to be able to get either one of these bullets loaded long enough to get any accuracy. And I don't know if it has entirely to do with the overall length, but that's what I'm going to guess for right now. The Spear bullet seems to be pretty good in every other way, so that's probably what we're going to try in our next 300 Blackout video. We'll take the Hornady 125 grain flat base hollow point, and we'll see how that shoots. I'm hoping we get closer to this performance, and we'll see if we can load it almost as long. I don't know if we can, but we may be able to squeak out. We can get it loaded within about that far. I think if we load this to where the cantilever is just barely to the top of the case, we may have some better results. But the only way is to try it. That's all I've got for today. You can see that it was just a little bit disappointing of a range trip, but hey, we got better results in 300 Blackout than I thought we could, and it happened to be with factory ammo. So that gives us a good place to start out with. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, follow us on Instagram, and check out our Patreon account. I would really appreciate some donations. You can see we missed a little bit of target camera footage today. The first thing I'm going to do once I start getting some Patreon funds coming in is buy a dedicated target camera, probably a GoPro, to sit down right next to the target and get footage, and hopefully a camera that won't cut off every little bit. Again, thanks for watching, and have a good one.